Hi, today I'm making a protein-sparing modified fast version of German cheesecake, or as my mother would call it, Kasekuchen.
As my mother would call it, Kasekuchen. I think my dad always called it cake. How do you pronounce cheesecake in German?
In German, cheesecake is Käsetorte.
Kasekuchen. Well, she said torta is another name for cake.
I'm Anita from KetogenicWoman.com, where I share keto recipes and carnivore cooking ideas. If you're new here, please hit subscribe and check out some of my other videos. Okay, so today I'm going to make a protein-sparing modified fast version of a German cheesecake. Now, of course, I'm making some big changes to it, but if you have a German auntie or mother or Oma or somebody like that in your family from that Eastern European bloc, you will have tasted this before, and when you taste it, you'll go, oh yeah, that tastes familiar. So it's a cheesecake that I grew up with, which is nothing like the North American cheesecakes. It doesn't even really look like a cheesecake. And I'm making a very thin, flat version of it. You could put it in a smaller pan and make it higher so that it's more like a traditional cheesecake dessert. But the reason I'm having it flat like this is just a little piece on your plate with your chicken breast or your turkey burgers when you're doing protein-sparing modified fast. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be your whole meal. It should just be a part of your meal, and that way you get a little treat along with your main meal, which should be animal protein. So I think you'll enjoy it though, and if you've never had it before, well, you're in for something new. We're gonna start by making a base. My mom always made it with a kind of a flour and butter, the cake base. It was not sweet. It was like a yeast dough on the bottom. Then there'd be a custard layer. And then she would put either a streusel topping on it. They even put fruit on it, my aunts and my grandmother. So you would often find it with various toppings. We're gonna keep it pretty simple and just have a bit of not even a streusel topping, but some cinnamon and brown sugar swirl, and that's it. It's gonna be very simple, but it's gonna taste like the traditional Käsekuchen. So let's start with the base, and it's your typical protein-sparing modified fast bread base, but we're keeping it very flat. I'm using egg whites. I'm going to use half a cup of egg whites, which if you're using regular fresh eggs, that's going to be 4 egg whites. I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of the egg white protein powder. This is what I get here in Canada. We don't have much choice here. If you're in the States, there's lots of choices on Amazon. You can get a cheaper one. 2 tablespoons. I'm going to put a tablespoon of yeast, nutritional yeast flakes. This is going to give it that yeast dough flavor. If you don't have it, you can leave it out. It's only for flavor. It doesn't do anything special. I like it. I'm going to put in half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. And yes, I'm sprinkling it all in together. With this first base, or this protein-sparing modified fast bread base that I'm making, I'm not trying to make a bread. I don't care if it rises. In fact, I prefer it if it's flat. Mixing it all together is just fine. I'm putting in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to this. And lastly, 1/8 of a teaspoon xantham gum. You don't need much. Got the oven on at 325. I'm going to start it slow just to incorporate so that the powder doesn't fly everywhere, and then I'm going to put it on high for a few minutes. All right, so that's firm enough. I got, you know, it's pretty stiff. So the pan is 9 by 13. If you have a silicone pan, that's best because then you don't have to do anything. It won't stick. With a pan like this, you could put some parchment paper in it. I'm going to give it some spritzes with Chosen Foods avocado oil spray. If you want to use butter or coconut oil or something, that's good. We're just going to scooch this into the pan. Then just spread it out as evenly as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so that is ready to go into the oven. Okay, that's going in for 10 minutes. It's very flat, so it doesn't need that much time. So while we're waiting for the bottom layer to bake, we're going to make the custard layer. So again, we need egg whites. This is a very high protein little cheesecake, very low in fat. It's going to be great for your protein sparing modified fast macros. I will put the macros down below. So we need 3/4 of a cup of egg whites. Okay, there's half a cup here and 1/4 cup. We also need 3/4 of a cup of Greek yogurt, 0% fat. Ooh, this might be just exact. We're going to sweeten this one just a little bit with allulose. I like to use allulose for baked custards because it's one of the only sweeteners that I'm able to get here in Canada that does not crystallize after you've baked it and then cool it. And I don't really like that crystallizing that happens. You could put more in here. The way we always traditionally had it was the base layer had no sweetener. The cheesecake layer was made with dry cottage cheese. Some people use quark, and it was just barely sweet. At least that's how they did it in my family, and maybe it's just because they couldn't afford sugar. I don't know. But it was like you could just barely taste the sweetness. And then whatever they put on top, that's where all the sweet would be. So I'm just following that traditional path of my grandma and my oma and my mom and my aunties. So you're just basically mixing it together. I mean, normally I would use whole eggs for this, but this is going to be perfectly suitable to eat on your protein sparing modified fast days, and that's what we want. Okay, that's nice and smooth. So we just need to wait for the bottom layer to come out. Oh, almost forgot. This is optional too. I normally I would use True lemon packets, but I'm out and I couldn't find any more at the store. I'm just putting in some lemon extract. They used to add things like lemon pudding and pie filling, a little bit high in carbs. We just want that little bit of lemon flavor. I'm putting in 1 teaspoon. Now I did make this without the lemon the first time I made it. I just went with kind of a vanilla, cinnamon, brown sugar topping, and it was good. So you don't have to put any lemon in at all. That's ready. We're just waiting for our base layer, and then we'll put that on top. Okay, our base layer is coming out of the oven. And I'm going to set my oven now to 350. So there it is. It's not very puffy, and that's good. This makes about 10 servings. So I'm going to cut it into 10 squares and then pour the custard on top. And then that kind of allows the moisture to seep into the bread mixture here. I'm using a pizza cutter, but you could just use a sharp knife if you don't have one. This just works kind of well. It does stick a little bit to it, but that's okay. So I actually cut it into 12 squares. I don't know where I got 10 from, but that's gonna make the macros even better. So that's a good thing. And no, the squares are not even. So, you know, try to make them a little bit more even. So what I'm going to do is take my custard now and then just kind of pour it over top like this. Some of it will seep down in there, and that's okay. And then try and get it to the edges. Okay, so that's our lightly lemony, lightly sweet. So then we want some more cinnamon on top. It's kind of a light dusting of cinnamon. And I have a 1/4 cup of brown sugar swerve here. If you have Lakanto or some other one, then that's fine. And again, I tend to go light on the sweet, just trying to use less sweetener in general. So I like to use just enough. You can feel free to double this if you want to. You know, whatever your preferences are. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Got some sticky fingers though. Okay, so there's our sweet topping. And now this is going to go back into the oven and baked at 350 until the custard is set. That should take 30 minutes, but I would check it at 25 minutes for sure. Okay, we'll see you when it's ready. Okay, it is coming out of the oven. Here's our cake. It's got some little bubblies on top. They look like raspberries, but I just kind of poke them. So this, of course, is way too hot to do anything with at this moment. You've got to let it cool down. I'm just trying to move away from the sides here. But I have a piece to show you what it looks like. So here's one that I made yesterday. Here it is when it's finished. So you can see all of the layers just kind of flatten out. It's very thin bottom crust and a very thin cheesecake, custard crust, whatever you want to call that. I actually prefer it cold out of the fridge. You can eat it warm, you know, wait for it to cool down. So this is your basic cheesecake, Kasekuchen, German style. I guess on a non-PSMF day, you could, you know, add another layer of something on top, you know, maybe blueberries or something sweet, I don't know. I just like it like this. I think it's really good. So give it a try and see what you think, and see if you can think of ways that you could dress it up and make it a little more fancy, or just eat it plain like this, as we used to do, and as I still do now. I hope you like it. We'll see you next time.
Kasekuchen, 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 Kasekuchen. I don't know if I said that right. I can be a little clumsy at times. Wet spatula on my foot. Okay.